Hello there and welcome. You probably want to learn a little bit more about sprint dept. So if you're sitting on the fence right now and you spend the next 10 or so minutes with Tris and I, we'll help you get off whichever side of the fence that may be. So in this video, we're going to cover everything, what we do, who we do it for. So if you're a good fit, we'll go over some of our past work, some proofs, some testimonials. We'll actually show you behind the scenes of the Figma files we deliver, including all the outcomes and deliverables attached to that. We'll give you a quick background on us as well as our process. And so that out the way, what we actually do is we do branding, and we don't do branding in your legacy model. We only do branding in 10-day sprints. So one flat fee, 10 days, that's it. If you're wondering if you're a good fit, you are a CMO, VP marketing director at a minimum 3 million plus ARR. You're a technology company or B2B SaaS, AI first, early stage startup. And if we break that down, what we deliver you is we equip your creative team with the strategic brand identity and turnkey toolkit. So what this turnkey allows you to do is to ship faster, so more creative output on brand. And this helps you to show up more consistently. And ultimately, we help you communicate your difference at scale. And this is how you differentiate and win on brand. All of this is designed, managed, and delivered in Figma in 10 days. Yes, 10 days, not 10 weeks, or not 10 days planning a meeting about a meeting. At the end of 10 days, on day 11, you'll have a fully operational Figma folder with libraries, everything ready to go. So a little bit more about the companies we work with is you are typically post-scrappy startup and pre-scalable growth engine. So what this looks like is you comfortably pass product market fit. If you're still finding your product market fit, you probably save your money, you probably don't need us. Equally, if you're on the right-hand side, you aiming to build out a full internal brand department, you're already hiring A players, you typically at a mature Series B, Series C level. So our sweet spot is in what it's looking like on your end is you're less product, you've already built the engineering dev team. You're now more about building that marketing function. You're trading generalists for a player specialist. You've got 2 to 5 full-time in-house designers. So you actually have a team boots on the ground, building the brand every day that we can hand our systems over to. You've got a VP of product in the house. You've got some sort of marketing leadership that we can work with and they can own the brand. The two headaches you're probably facing right now that we've helped our past clients solve. Firstly, you've either got no story, an old story, or the wrong story. So maybe you having a slight pivot where you maybe want to double down on one of your features and you need to update the story at the master level to reposition. Maybe you've been strictly in the weeds with the product, so you have no story. You don't really have any exciting way to talk about the product other than the features. Secondly, you've outgrown your outdated assets. So maybe you've been using that same illustration for the last year and it's just getting a bit stale. You just have one style guide with a couple of hex codes and you don't really have any tools in your toolkit. You don't have a strategic idea to rally behind. So there's no strategic through line across the work. There's no way to really judge if the work is successful because it's not telling any story. Second but not least, what has got you here won't get you to that Series B level. So you've done the hard work, you've built a solid product, but people don't buy the features, people buy what your company stands for, and that's where we come in. And then lastly, anything's been going and it's starting to show. So you creative silos are starting to come up, everyone's have their own spin on the brand, and from a 10,000 foot view, everything looks a little bit different, and you finally want to get a bit of clarity on that. So what it looks on an actual day-to-day basis, and if at least 3 of these resonate, we suggest book your call, we can definitely help you. So you've got no consistency, no creativity, no centralized hubs. Someone's got the logo downloaded in their folder, someone's got a couple of assets on the Google Drive, and it's just all over the show. No one knows what on-brand means, so you don't have a guideline or a source of truth. You've got no tools to communicate your value, so whether this is on your website when you need to talk about your features, you don't have a visual toolkit to mirror the verbal. You've got hit or miss freelancers, so you've tried a subscription design agency, you've had a Fiverr freelancer come in, then you've had a website designer come in, they've all had their different spin on the brand. Every piece of comms is built from scratch, so you have no system to use to repeatable templates or repeatable formats to help speed up output. And lastly, you reinvent in the wheel every single post, whether that's from a storytelling perspective or simply the visual assets. And trust me, you don't need another agency, you don't need another freelancer. What you do need is you need a sprint department. And now everything we do at Sprint Department is obsessing over and in service of delivering the following. We give you a visual system to hero your strategy. So right now, you've probably got a written document that's collecting dust, but the market can't see that. So we execute that strategy and we bring that brief to life and we give you a system so that you can show up in the market the way you intend to. We give you a living and breathing creative hub connected to your story. So you're always telling the same story at all touch points at all times. We equip your team with the tools and systems so when they boots on the ground designing the brand, they can actually execute the strategy and achieve your vision. Help you get consistent output and look and feel credible. So in today's age, consistency is credibility. And lastly, we help you establish that position in the market. So when you reestablish the gold standard at scale, it allows you to dominate your category. We'll touch on this in the process section, but the way we achieve this is we do a done with you creative process and we deliver a done for you creative toolkit. So we can quickly look at some of the past testimonials. Feel free to pause this and read them in detail, but these all range from CEOs to global marketing directors to creative directors. And some of the common themes here is it's really, really thorough and it's always got strategic substance behind it. And we've done about 10 to 12 of these brand sprints in the last 6 months. Some of these are built from scratch, including the name. Some of these are for 2,000 plus companies.
Okay, so now we're going to go through some case studies. Now we've got Slate, Cosmic Jam, Catalyst Apps, and Sparked. Now for context, Cosmic Jam, Catalyst, and Sparked, they were all brand news, meaning that there was no existing brand identity before the sprint. So everything you see was built, designed, and delivered in 10 days. But Slate was a brand push, so it had some legacy assets. Essentially, keep the logo, change the rest. So we had the legacy logo, legacy wordmark, and then there's some legacy greens that were key to their positioning in the market. So we've chosen these 4 projects to go through because as well as delivering full brand identity, systems, guidelines, and asset libraries, we actually think within each project there's a really specific piece of tooling or a specific aspect of the brand identity toolkit that we just know really helped the team and really helped move the needle when it came to output and staying on brand and being consistent at scale. So we're going to go through that now.
Cool, so let's dive right into Slate. A little bit of background on this project was it was a brand push, so our job was to enrich, enhance the identity and the world around the logo. We didn't actually touch the logo. A little bit more about Slate is they're a all-in-one creative suite built for social media teams where you can edit your video and image and ultimately help teams keep their content on brand at the speed of social. There are 60 plus company size with a target of 5 million ARR with a small 2 to 3 social first marketing team, and our job was to help them equip them for that next chapter. So if you have a look at what they had before they came to us, they didn't really have any exciting way or anything tools in their toolkit to really talk about their product, and ultimately they didn't really know what was the actual on-brand greens. So straight with that into the color, we helped them position as more of this all-in-one creative platform. They had a vision of being more fun and playful, and that green was limiting them a bit. So we still kept the brand equity in the green, so still a green first brand, but helping them just be a little bit more flexible and dynamic and aligning with where they wanted to go as a company. With the color in place and then the overarching creative principle of content creation at the speed of social, and a lot of work behind the scenes, we arrived at these super powered workflows. So these super powered workflows is our turnkey identity system that they can use to always tell that story at scale. So this represents and symbolizes the creative power their product gives to their users. So a little bit more behind that of how we arrived at this idea is they're moving to be more video first. So we wanted to hear the timeline. How can we show the creative power that these creators have at the tip of their fingers? So imagine there's a wake of creativity behind the playhead. And when that meets the speed of social, how can we capture that feeling and that sentiment of speed and creative power? And then from there, we gave them about 6 to 8 workflow templates, different kit of parts, all filled with different types of creativity inspired from the different types of content creation. So craft, script, motion. From there, we could build loads of different, almost 100 drag and drop pre-mode workflows ready for them to use, as well as end-to-end timelines. Whether you're a Figma guru or just a founder when you want to make a quick keynote, all you have to do is click through these at any time and just toggle these through. So if you want script, motion, color, let's say we want craft, they're always linked to our brand Figma library, so the colors are always correct. If we want to go slate green or violet, maybe that's an awful combination. We can go yellow, orange, whatever that may be. You can always toggle through it. Once they had this supercharged workflow kit of parts, the next step was how can we better equip them to tell these micro and macro stories about their product. And we had this idea of what if we take inspiration from the actual UI of the product. So whether it's the media hub or the video editing timeline, or so cursor chats, text overlays, avatar icons, or the actual social media. And these are all built ready to go components. So none of these you have to build from scratch. You don't have to be a Figma wizard to use these. You can toggle these on and off. Or if you want to say, demo, whatever the app is, you can easily use those. So once we had these three systems in place of the color, the workflows, and the UI kit of parts, they could easily better control the narrative of their product. So they weren't relying on stale screenshots, for example. Now they had these tools where from a product marketing, they needed to talk in an abstract way, so that bringing the timeline to life, or whether it was specific features and benefits on their website or marketing or socials, whatever it may be. They had the tools to do so, and then from there it was just about bringing it all together. So we always give about 10, 12 different pages in the best practices. So from day one, they can already start executing the brand. So whether that's ranging from 4x5 socials, content, whatever it may be, they can do a quick copy check and almost post these almost 30 days of content. We gave them all these LinkedIn headers ready to go, all toggleable and changeable. And then on top of that, every image you'll see in here, we actually made ourselves from a mid-journey prompt. We're all centered around the ICP. So all of these are linked to the Figma library, so you can always just toggle between these and choose whichever you like. So ultimately, that is the Slate project.
Okay, now we're going to go through the Cosmic Jam brand identity guidelines. I'm going to cherry pick some of the most relevant parts of the project to talk about. For context, Cosmic Jam is a vertical first media technology company with a portfolio of apps dedicated to short form vertical content and very condensed storytelling, very bingeable. Their biggest flagship app is Drama Pops. So the goal was to turn their portfolio of apps into a universe of storytelling, and their internal positioning was all about sticky ideas and sticky media, hence Cosmic Jam. So bringing those two ideas together. So it's a custom word mark built by Sprint Department. We wanted it to be able to be very retro looking, very space, very futuristic. We want it to be able to be stacked, be long form, that you could really hero it, that you'd want to put it on everywhere, put it on a t-shirt. So when it came to color, there were already 9 chapters within Cosmic Jam's portfolio of apps, whether it was drama, whether it was fantasy, whether it was fiction, podcast, businesses. So we needed the color to have a very simple product specific logic to it, but we also needed to be able to work within the system if we needed to go dark, if we needed to go light. When it came to the gradients, we wanted them to be able to work on their own, but also together, so they could be a core master brand, which was very much blue dominant. But then when we broke back down into the product sectors, they would also be able to have product specific colors. But then when we were at the master brand level, we would be able to talk about all of them at the same time as we spoke about the technology or the chunked up ideas that exist within the portfolio. So there was some very simple logic behind the usage, which was great when paired with the font, because we were able to choose a grotesque variable typeface, so very indicative of film posters. So it meant that we could use very simple, big scaled up objects, so big color, big gradients, big typography. So say for instance, we were talking about gaming, which was very green. The image rim shot would have the same color as the genre, and then the gradient would also work. But at the master brand level over to the right, you could also bring them all together, which would give a very nice overview of the world that we were building. So moving into the identity system, which was heavily relying on the imagery, we simply broke the assets down into 2 ideas, which would be abstract and objects. Objects, like I've shown you already, were very specific, very targeted. They could talk about a very specific feature or benefit. Abstract was a little bit more chunked up master brands to say, better for framing type, better for interacting with type and imagery. You could imagine some nice interactions on digital. But what we wanted to do, and we always do, is make sure that the asset library we deliver is completely set up for them to just drag and drop and start from day one. So to be very tactical about the prompt, there was a very specific block of text that had been tested over time. We also had a profile ref and an sref that linked to mood boards of the same images that had been enriched and tested over time, so that when they needed to, they had a material texture to draw from, so that the Midjourney prompt had loads of information that you could essentially say, give me a 3D cobra, and within 2 or 3 prompts, it would give you a cobra. So now just to focus on bringing that all together, just to give you an overview of what we delivered. So we always deliver a best practices where it just shows you the kind of highlight reel of everything you can use. We also give the templates in the best practices, which I'll show you soon, just so if they like a piece of content but they need to change the text, they can just drag it into Figma, change the image if they want to, change the color, change the type, and then export that, it's ready to go. Which helps for non-designer people who are part of the team. If there's still some jack of all trades nature to the business, we made sure that we accommodated for everybody. So top level inspiration for the landing page and above the fold ideas, image led or type led. They could have hover states if they wanted to lead with the specific nature of their portfolios. So the team and the developers immediately have a, oh yeah, this is great, oh no, not that, or oh, this would be great for that. So there's already a movement and progression happening because of the initial setup of work. Again, this is a great opportunity to make sure that the identity works across all genres, whether they're together or in isolation. Also, when you want to flex it to social content, so you want to be more playful, more big and bold, more overlay, more layers. There's also a big drive for talent, so we want to make sure that the identity could flex to work with photography, as well as the graphic language and the colors. We wanted to make sure there was that flex. And because Cosmic Jam as a technology company is building a lot of their own tech, we also wanted to give them the opportunity to do carousel ourselves and share information, and where possible just being really confident with it and just letting the heroing the mark and then hearing the brand property and that interaction, just allowing that awareness to kind of permeate and that kind of intrigue of, wow, okay, this is something different, this is really cool, we've not seen this before. So just to give you an overview of what we deliver for Cosmic Jam and all our projects, as well as a full working guidelines you can see here in Figma, we also would go into best practices, so anything that we create that we think is of value, that could be reskinned or could help the designers in the future to get going. For instance, how does it work when you're using it in decks or with copy? And then what happens when we show the product, or for instance, third-party images that we might not have control of? And then when it comes to landing pages and inspiration for what can be done above the fold, you know, what happens if we want to be very type heavy, and what happens if we want to be very hover state and show each of the different genres as they kind of scroll through. So skimming through socials quickly, we try to give them formats and ideas and ways of working and ways of using the brand that they can use from day one. We show the brand in play, we show the assets being used, so there's that real feel that they can just come in here, and if they need to change that and move that, they can. It's all live and ready to go. And now let's jump into the component library. So I've mentioned all these bits come together. So for all the different subjects, you can see they've all got specific objects that help really tell the story of the genre and some of the ideas that would feature, some of the topics they'd be talking about, some of the ideas and content that would be generated. We also recolored the core favorites to make sure that they worked at the master brand level, so the oozing stuff that would be a lot more chunked up master brand cold audience. Then we made sure that we made their own device that still had the same consistency, so that when they wanted to show, say, an iPhone or a device, for instance, it was in that style of the brand already, so it's very ownable. And just to zoom in on some of these, so you could really see that Cosmic Jam detailing coming through as you scroll through. It should be great for content, great for storytelling, ready to go at their disposal, drag and drop, plug and play, that all had the same logic that applied throughout. So let's jump into the Catalyst brand identity sprint. Now, for context, Catalyst Apps are a consumer-facing technology company. They build productivity and utility apps, very much in the productivity space. And their initial positioning that they came with us, where they're positioning in the market, was all about being that first step to kind of trigger that new behavior, that up and to the right progress, those kind of atomic habits. So all of that verbal stuff translated into the name Catalyst Apps. And then from a visual perspective, we wanted to, from an ownable mark perspective, this was the winning mark that captured that verbal story, and then connected, we did some nice detailing on the type here as well. But to kind of zoom out from a color perspective, obviously we were in that forge mentality. It was very much about hot, that catalyst, that center point, you know, that white hot thing radiating out. So we wanted to build a graphic device that allowed them to not just kind of use color, that actually had a way of attaching meaning and story and building meaning. So we decided to build out a tool where you could generate catalysts. So we kicked them off kind of to accelerate the initial idea with a little library that they could drag and drop. We kind of showed them how to do the crops. As you can see, this feels very left to right, feels very explosive and very chunked up, master brand, exciting color palette they can start to be known for as they kind of build and penetrate the market. This kind of culminated in us realizing that we needed to build a tool for this rather than having static things or manual things that required lots of labor and would create a bottleneck of a designer. So the main goal here was to, how do we help Catalyst Apps kind of articulate some of the things that they want to talk about? So whether speed, whether that be signal, whether that be optimism, infrastructure and scaling, future, but using the brand property rather than one brand property that would just be cropped in loads of different ways. That would get old very quickly. So I'm going to take you through a tool that we built to allow them to do this, so that when you run it across all of their work, for a quick context, everything that they produce could be, you know, very new and very fresh, but under a very simple idea taken very seriously. So it could work with photo, it could work as little cards in UI, it could work as blog posts, it could work on the website. Okay, so now I want to take you through the Catalyst generator that we built for the team. Now the goal here was to equip the team with a tool that allowed them to generate as many patterns as they wanted, essentially always on brand. So the goal was that they couldn't really do much that wasn't. Now there are certain things that maybe aesthetically you might prefer over others, but we wanted to make sure that all the colors were loaded in, all the gradients were loaded in, everything was labeled, it was all toggleable, all drag and drop. That if you wanted to show connection, or if you wanted to show scaling, or if you wanted to show infrastructure, you could use the tool and the graphic language to help articulate that, and then crop into it and zoom it. And then if you wanted to, you could generate multiple ones of those to create a suite of that specific idea. So let's just reset here. So essentially the tool, I'll just kind of do it randomly just to show you, but you could choose your spokes, you could choose your spoke gap, but we'll keep that at 0. You could choose the rings around, so immediately, as you can see, it kind of gets really fun. And if you use the center hole if you wanted to, but we're not going to have the center hole, and we're going to keep it fully solid. You could change the direction of the gradient if you wanted to, 'cause sometimes when it's really zoomed in, it's really good to have almost a light source. We'll do from center to this one. You could toggle how much you want it to be solid. I've only got one solid color connected, or how much you want it to be gradients, and then somewhere in between. So let's go full gradient, for instance. You would, if I was down here and I selected all those gradients, they would all turn on and you'd be able to use full gradients. Let's go a bit minimal just for ease so I can show you an end result. And then, if you go in this side, if you just want it to be those three colors, you see it goes flat. So we thought around the 60 mark was kind of a good thing, but I'll go full just for ease here. And then obviously we could do a grid and a radial. So you could, when you crop in, you could do some grid work, or you could do radial, but we also added in where you could overlay the two, which is where those kind of really interesting patterns came into play. So what could I do? Let's do not a lot of spokes to get some bigger shapes, which I kind of like. We'll do less slices, and then we'll do 45 degrees, and then let's turn off or on full color. Let's make it really peculiar, and then we'll turn these two colors off. 99, so we'll make it 100, so it's completely gradient. So you can see, we can then, once you're in this idea, so say for instance you really like this and this helps you, maybe this is about optimism or the future or AI or some kind of intelligence that kind of fills in that space, you would then just hit place on canvas and it would generate it as a 1000 by 1000 shape. If you were like the realm that you were in, you could also just regenerate within the space. So it's kind of seeing what would it look like if I move some shapes around, what if I like the logic but then I want to add in another gradient to make that kind of interesting, keep the settings and then generate through without resetting it. Obviously I've done that very quickly, but the nature of what we wanted to do is imagine building out an entire suite of that, which allowed them to do some really fun stuff in the future and have a very simple rule and a very simple kind of infrastructure and guide rail that they can then iterate on and move as they want to keep the brand alive and keep it fresh. And I can imagine that there's probably something inside your brand that we could build a tool for like this, which massively reduces design skill. You don't have to upskill. It's very turnkey and allows you to really execute very quickly, as well as always staying on brand.
Cool. So the last project I'm going to walk you through is Sparked. Quick background on Sparked is they're actually a brand new vertical. So this project included naming. There was no brand whatsoever before we started the sprint, and they live under a larger parent ecosystem of Codebase. So the vertical they own is all about general learning. So their consumer mobile apps range from brain games to IQ quizzes, plant and coin identifiers. It's all about learning more. It's all about expanding and growing our knowledge. And ultimately, it's about sparking daily personal development and education at scale. Whether we're sparking new connections with the brain or whether we're sparking new apps or new categories, we wanted to take that simple idea and run with that across the brand. So everything you'll see will be informed from that simple overarching creative principle and strategy. Starting off with the logo. So the logo is already a short word. We didn't need to build a complicated pictorial logo. We simply just had to build a clever logo mark, and you can see that smile in the mind with the simple spark. A small window into the world, and if we double click into that, you'll see the crux of this brand and the identity system is what we call spark wheels. So what these are made up of, they nod to three things. One, you can see the spark in the middle that is also in the logo. Two, you can see how it's taken inspiration from our synapses and the actual way our brain is built. And three, we can see different domains of knowledge coming together. The more we learn, the more neural connections we make. So different ideas and phenomena coming together, whether those different ideas are art, finance, economics, whether it's different subjects we took in school, history, mathematics, nature, philosophy, psychology, and all of these are taking inspiration from the actual products and apps they have in their portfolio. So if they need to talk about their plant identifier app, for example, they've got a wide library of nature and biology to specifically talk about that. And when they all come together, we're telling that idea of sparking and increasing your knowledge. So you can see how really exciting these are. We didn't want them to actually look like standalone photographs. We wanted to tweak them to this point where they're really tactile, high detail. You can zoom in and build an entire world around these. When we're always in true sprint dept style, want to equip them with the workflow, how they can build it themselves. So we're never going to just leave them high and dry with standalone assets. They can simply follow the 6-step process and recreate these for years to come themselves. On top of that, we gave them a talent library, and this is all linked to the component library. So it's a click, plug and play situation, as well as a product library of the devices actually in the situation. So if I quickly expand more on the identity system, how we operationalize this and turn that one idea into a full drag and drop turnkey system where it's just a matter of clicks is first built out the sort of rails that it all runs on. So we gave them a couple of different code names so they can use the tennis ball, the peace sign, or the lemon. And this was all built with actually an internal tool, how to get the geometry perfect all the time. And then from there, it's about filling those in with the actual imagery. So if you look on the left here, we've got the bottom left panel. For example, we're going to take the overlay off. Let's say we're in art. Let's say we want to talk about a different type of art. You can toggle within the art bucket. So if you want to do that, you can also move that. You can also scale that. Let's say we want to completely move out of the art bucket. We want to move into devices. You can always go, or economics, all of the different subjects we can talk about. So if we want to have nature, we can have that here. If we want to put the overlay back on, we can also do that. And what this turnkey system has done is not only visually help them show up consistent at all times, but we've also equipped them with the verbal sparks and ideas of how they can talk about their product from a more exciting, ownable way, helping them, one, align internally of what they're doing and where they're going, and two, they have this inspirational, aspirational, bigger chunked up story to attract top talent. So they're now talking more in the way of we're building the third way of personal self-development, or we're helping expand the knowledge of society with their apps. We give them loads of best practices, almost 60 to 80 ready to go. So these are almost, you could press publish on them with a little copy check, and they need to be more people focused, device focused, product focused, or if they need a hire, if they need to have a quote, you can see that simple identity system being flexed, zoomed in, zoomed out, small, big, large, whatever they need to talk about, whenever they need to talk about it, they've got the tools to do so.
So just to give some context about Sprint Department and its origin story. So Josh and I met on Twitter, and then we both lived in London, so we became fast friends. We used to go to the pub and complain about the state of the industry, essentially. We co-founded Sprint Department on a couple of things. So one, a mutual obsession to narrow the gap between idea and execution. We were both just kind of a bit frustrated. So I'm very agency background, 15 years in agency, 5 years full-time, almost 10 years freelance. And Josh has spent the last 5 years very much edge of the internet, working with bootstrap founders, really in the thick of a lot of SaaS and a lot of the AI stuff was coming out. And we'd seen the movements in the market. We saw the sprint model becoming a lot more popular. We saw rise of AI and the rise of LLMs and stuff that was speeding up and kind of contracting that time so that you could really execute a lot faster. But you could be efficient, but you could also be effective. And then essentially one night we put our heads together and we're like, could we do this? Take the best bits from this side, take the best bits from this side, and kind of look at what's in the market and how we can iterate and make it better. And there was that shared belief that if you just focus on the work, that 10 days is a long time. And we do believe that the best process is a flexible process. So we do really know where we're going. We have documented every single day and every single outcome that happens every day. Do know how to get there. But the rest of it, if you imagine, we always know where day 10 is and we always know where day 1 is. But the way in which we get there has to evolve because of the nature of creativity, has to evolve in service of the work and in service of the creative. So I'll just take you through our roadmap. So day by day, you can quickly see. I won't go into it, but just to see that we have delegated, you can pause it if you want to read it in depth. Here's your project roadmap that breaks down every single day of the brand sprint. You'll get access to this in the file, so you always know where you are. So big milestones are obviously you kick off with the workshop, end the week 1 with creative consensus. Then we break for the weekend and have some fresh eyes. We can reconfirm the winner as we begin to build out the guidelines and the identity. We share the guidelines, we build the toolkits, and then we hand over the project. So there's no guesswork and you always know where you are. And just to add even more context, I just want to take you through a project for Codeway, case studies on our website. I won't go into detail on the work, but just to show you the 1 day to 10 day. So we began day 1 with the workshop, as we mentioned. So we go through the visual, the verbal, we do some mood boarding, initial ideas off the back of that, early territories. Day 3, refinement. Day 4. Day 5, we have the little huddle, so the best bits from each. You can see the system starting to merge what got killed. Image treatment, people, places, things, ideas, how we define the terms. And then we're starting to get into systems, showing the colors, what's working, showing how it will work. And then refinement on that, even more refinement on that. And then we share a cut of the guidelines, and then another cut of the guidelines, and then the final guidelines after that. So you just know it's completely documented every day. No worry where you are, you know where you are at all times. Okay, so top line, we begin every sprint with a director workshop where we just get on a call together, where we define terms, we understand what you mean, we take that verbal and try and pair it with some visual, we do some mood boarding, bit of sandbox style and then a bit more structured, so we can kickstart the creative and to really help us understand where your head's at, and all those sparks and all that finding kind of comes together, which kickstarts the project for us, especially the creative side of things. We get to understand maybe a little bit of the direction we need to go in, what we're aiming at. We have 3 calls after that, which is on the Friday, the Monday, and the Friday. And just to reiterate, it's Josh and I only. We don't have project managers. We've sorted all of that onboarding out, but there's no one in the way. It's just you work directly with us. We don't have Slack as well. We don't want any siloed creative or siloed conversations happening. We don't want to miss anything. We talk and discuss on top of the work, so we can Zoom. If we have to do a breakout and start working on the work whilst we're talking, we can. You get shared access to all the project files we share every day. You get to see work every single day, so you understand where it is. Sometimes we're asking you for feedback. Sometimes we're signing things off. Sometimes we're in the weeds together. Other times Josh and I are showing you the system and walking you through the steps that we've defined. We obviously transfer everything, so you get full ownership of the Figma file, so there's no hidden sort of licensing or anything like that. Every single day we send an update loom, just where we're at, what's expected of the day, what we're doing tomorrow, anything we need from you, and everything we've spoken about all comes together to form our 10-day brand sprint. So we've told you that we have a flexible process and that everything we do is in service of the work, and that might manifest as a custom tooling. It could be an AI generated image or suite of images. It could be image treatments. It could be illustration libraries. It could be an in-house image prompt that you guys use. It could be a working set of UI kits. It could be high quality photography that's genned. It could be copywriting that you want to test. It could be website best practices that you can then send onto the dev team to get those brand moments immediately online. And it can be digital layouts, everything from squeeze pages to social pages to whatever. In short, everything you need to succeed and nothing that you don't. We get it done in 10 days. It's yours and you can start from day one. And finally, we've said it before, but we'll say it again. You don't need another agency or a freelancer. You need a sprint department. Anything we've not covered that you wish we had, there's a button below, book a 30-minute demo, and we can talk about everything you need. Let's get that booked in. Chat soon.